function P of Q equals A minus BQ. B plus Q. Now the marginal cost in the first period is C1, and in the second period is C1 minus M times Q1. So we have marginal cost. In the first period, C1 in period 2, C2 equals C1 minus M times Q1. Okay? What does this mean? It means this is the learning value, right? Like learning means your marginal cost goes down, and it goes down in proportion to how much you produce in the first period. The more you produce in the first period, the more you learn, the more it lowers your cost. Okay, and then well, we have to solve this. So what is the monopoly level of output in each of the periods? So A is solved with this problem, right? So it's for maximization problem. So how are we going to solve this? We're going to maximize just Q1 A minus B minus Q1, right? Times Q1 minus C1 times Q1, right? That's the first period. And when we do first order condition, with respect to Q1, we're going to get the marginal revenue is going to be A minus 2B times Q1. Marginal revenue. Equal to marginal cost, right? Minus C equals 0. Okay, so marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Okay, and then we're going to have the problem in period 2. Maximizes in Q2. A minus B times Q2 now. Times Q2 minus C2 times Q2, right? Where C2 is equal to C1 minus A times Q1. So okay, marginal revenue in period 2. So first definition, doing the derivative with respect to point 2, and A minus 2B times C2 minus C2 equals 0. Okay, so marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And now the marginal cost here is going to be lower in period 1. The firm very small. Okay. This is what you guys did.
I thought because it was a two-period model, we would do like backward deduction. Like first solve the, you probably will arrive to the same result, but like first maximize period 2, and then you get, what do you get? You get like the profits dependent on Q1 for period 2, and then when you do the static decision of period 1, you replace the Q2 by the expression you got as a function of Q1. That's what I did.
Okay, so here I'm not doing backward reduction, I'm just solving the period separately. Right? So first, we want to put period 1, then period 2. Mr. Lat here says, because it's a two-period model, you should do it backward reduction. Doesn't matter if we do backward reduction here or here, we're going to have the same result.
I think we will reach the same result.
I think we will.
You think it's going to be the same?
Yeah, I think we will. Because then it makes sense with the rest, with B and C. Like the other two.
we solve it this way, and then we do it by backward induction, and let's see if it's the same. So here, what are we going to get? The quantity of from 1, right? Is going to be equal to
A minus C over 3.
A minus C1 over 2B under Q2. It's going to be A minus C2 over 2B, right? Now C2 is going to be lower because we learned the second degree. Now what if we did backward induction? So 2P or more. So we do backward induction. We do backward induction means we first solve the second period, right? In the second period, the quantity that occurs in the first period is given. I will choose the quantity in the second period. And okay, so we're gonna maximize choosing Q2 minus B Q2 minus C2 times Q2 where C2 equals to C1 minus Q2 times Q2. First order condition for Q2 is A minus 2B Q2 minus C2 equals to
It's the same.
it's the same. Okay. So Q2 is going to be equal to A minus C2 over 2. And now what about the first period? Now we're with max. No, first period. We're going to maximize choosing Q1 A minus B times Q1 times Q1 minus C1 times 1.
Yeah. The same again.
Looks the same. Looks the same, right?
I mean, the problem is symmetric. The only difference is that C2 includes C1 minus blah blah blah, but it's just substituted. But the rest is the same.
It's the same. But I'm missing something.
We're learning by doing when you derive period 1. Yeah, right? Because
I mean, as it's written here, the firm doesn't care what I do. Right? It's the same as if it were just one period. Okay, so there's learning by doing, but the firm doesn't internalize learning by doing at all. Right? Because here, the way we wrote it, or there, actually, it looks the same. Even though we do backward induction or not, it doesn't matter. But what we're missing really is not really about backward induction versus solving it altogether. What we're missing is that the firm in period 1 doesn't care only about period 1 profits, right? If it's going to internalize and learn by doing, that's capturing the idea that the firm cares about the profits in period 1 and the profits in period 2,
yeah.
right? It might discount the profits in period 2, but here doesn't say anything about discounting. So the firm doesn't maximize in Q1, right? And Q2 is maximizing by 1 of Q1
That's
plus
I1 to 1.
by 2 of Q2 and Q1. Right? And this is what's missing from our argument. You see what I mean? Otherwise, it's like, okay, but if the firm doesn't care about the profits next period, there's a discount rate of infinity. It's like the discount rate is 0, right? Plus some delta, right? Some discount rate. If this is 0, if we put 0 weight on next period profit, then it will be like this. And it's like the firm doesn't internalize the learning by doing, right? But the firm cares, right? And says, also assume that the monopolist does not discount future earnings. Okay, so delta is actually equal to 1, right? So that means here in period 1, the objective function is not pi 1, it's pi 1 plus pi 2. Right? So we have plus a minus b minus q2
Times Q2.
of q1 times q2 q1 minus c2 of q1 times q2 of q1. Because if I change the quantity, C2 is equal to C1 minus M times Q1. That's going to change my cost. If my cost changes in the second period, my quantity in the second period is going to change as well, right? According to that equation here, Q2 of Q1 is A minus C2 of Q1, right? C1 minus C1 plus M times Q1 over 2B. Here 2, here 2. You see what I mean? We were forgetting about internalizing the profits in the second period. If we just don't think about it, we're like, okay, maximize profits. We're in period 1, maximize profits in period 1. No. Maximize the discounted present value of profits. Right? And you have multiple terms. Okay? And when you do that, you're going to have the profits in period 2, and those are going to be a function of how much you produce in period 1. Because the learning by doing, the fact that the cost in period 2 depend on how much you produce in period 1 links the two periods. Okay.
But if it's intertechnical, then we do have to do second period first, right?
So I would say you can do it two ways. Here, because it's not a game, you could do it, backward induction is for games. It's also useful as an algorithm in just dynamic programming problems, but it's not mandatory. In games, it's mandatory. If you only have dynamic games and you have whereas one player plays against the other one, you have to do it by backward induction. In final games. Yeah.
So if there's no if there's no discount factor, why did you you can just solve both periods at the same time?
You could solve them the two at the same time, but you have to maximize the sum of the profits. You could do it that way, and it's probably the easiest way. You could also do it by backward induction, and you're gonna get the same result, but you're gonna get the same result only if you remember to put the second period profits. If you want to write the profits of period 1, the two periods are not linked, and then you're gonna get that solution which is wrong. You see what I mean? Is this obvious? Okay. Well, it's not more or less, but it's good to say it, right? It's good to remember. Yeah.
If there was a discount factor, could you just do the sum of both profits?
Yeah, but you have to put the discount factor. Then, but if there's a discount factor, it just means your objective function is going to be pi 1 plus some discount factor less than 1 times the profit in period 2. Okay, that means when you discount, you're doing some present value of money. That is discounting, so money in the future is worth less for the firm than money now. Right? Time is money. Right? Have you ever heard of the phrase time is money?
Yeah.
Okay, but we're born after the year 2000 or something. It's every know. What does it mean that time is money? It could mean many things. It could mean that you can work with that time and then you make money with your work. It could also mean that if you have money now, it's going to make you more money in the future if you invest it, right? And therefore money now is worth more than money in the future. Okay? Oh, you guys know this. Right? You guys know this. Okay, for the firm, it's the same. So that's why we have point here is like just to make things simple, let's just put the table 1, and that's it. Let's say the discount factor is equal to 1. Okay, so the root of 30 is equal to 2. Alright. Okay, we have to solve.
I have a question, so for the A on the first one, so we should add the least parts of the equation.
Oh, we're still in it.
Okay.
We first I did it wrong. Yeah, this is wrong. Okay.
I mean, it is wrong if we don't maximize the sum.
It's right if you maximize the sum. But what do we maximize?
It's here.
The sum.
So here we're maximizing it's here.
We're maximizing the sum.
Yeah, in general we're maximizing the sum.
Let's go find 0. So what do we maximize?
So,
The sum.
like a 2-period monopolist is kind of like a social planner that only maximizes producer surplus, kind of. Because you're like maximizing these 2 profits. It makes me think of like a social planner. But he's only maximizing the firm side.
Well, I guess you could think of the monopolist, the social planner that only cares about profits, but that's just another way of saying a monopoly, not a social planner. A social planner would care about everyone, but it's true that you could have a social planner that puts 0 weight on some on consumers, and it would be like it's not what we usually think of as the social planner. And especially in the quasi-linear case. Well, actually, yes, it's not, this would never be a social planner, because utility is quasi-linear, and so just maximizing the profits and putting 0 weight on the consumers, at least in this way, would be inefficient. So a social planner would never choose it, even if it only cared about the monopoly. Because we could have a different problem if we had like a Pareto problem. Then you could say we put all the weight on the monopolists and 0 weight on consumers, but that social planner is not going to decide the quantity that the monopolist is going to produce. It's going to decide the allocation. It's going to decide how much is produced, and it's going to decide how much goes directly to each agent in the economy. And that's a different thing from like the monopolist that chooses the quantity. Because a social planner doesn't have the dilemma that it has to reduce quantity to increase price to extract some surplus from the others. The social planner, if they only care about the monopolist, they could be like, look, this firm, we're going to produce the efficient quantity, and then we're going to give everything to A. Right? That's different from the monopolist. The monopolist cannot do that. Because the monopolist faces this inverse demand function, and it's like, okay, if I produce, that's the price, and then the consumers can buy at that price. You see what I mean? It's different. Do people get this? There's a difference between a monopolist choosing the quantity that the firm is going to produce and a social planner that decides everything.
Yeah.
How much we're going to produce, who's going to get it. There's no prices there. Okay? It's like Soviet Union territory.
Yeah, because the important thing is welfare, not profit.
I mean, I don't know if this will sometimes had some prices, but as I said, like the caricature of Soviet Union, right? So it's like there's like this like Lenin guy, and he decides like how much milk you're gonna produce. You're forced to produce it, and then we decide who gets the milk, right? And that's not the same as a monopolist. The monopolist decides. Suppose you have a monopoly on milk, you're still in a market in a way. You still feel the demand, and you're not like standing or something. Okay, you can produce less milk to increase the price of milk and get more surplus. But you cannot say that, okay, all the milk goes to this amount, and nobody else gets milk. You know? or the opposite, or like, I'm gonna give each of you 1 milk, and that's it, and nobody's allowed to buy more milk even if you want to, right? You see what I mean? Different optimization problems. You can have a social planner that only cares about profits, but that's different from the monopolist model. Okay, it's a bit savvy. Is it clear to everyone? No? Yeah? No? Okay. It sounds crazy talking about the Soviet Union and the social planner. We went to already You guys don't even know what this story was. I was born, when I was born, it was the Soviet Union. And I'm not talking about this, I don't know what the fall of the Soviet Union. What? I was born closer to World War II than to now.
Yeah.
That's how old I am. I basically was born in the post-war of World War II. The end of the war. And then, kind of like, in the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah, more like Cold War than post-war.
But it was the Cold War. The Cold War was the post-war of World War II. Within that. No, yesterday, like, last weekend we were watching some National Geographic videos, you know, of animals and stuff, and then like there was this video that after was like the war for the Pacific, like of Japan versus Australia, like in Papua New Guinea. And like we watched that, you know, with my 5-year-old daughter, you know, she loved it, you know. But it wasn't super popular. It was more National Geographic people who were like finding some claims in the ocean and stuff like that. You know, I had to sort of start explaining to her, you know, what World War II was. You know, now she's like obsessed with it. And now she's like, I want more about the thing, you know, where people were fighting. And like, oh, what do you mean, like the war, like World War II? Like, yeah, I want to know more about that. And I'm like, okay, I have to dosify it. You know, I mean, like if I look on the internet, like World War II videos, you know, I mean, it's like I have to be careful, of course, because like she's gonna have nightmares or something. You know what I mean? So and I have to explain to her more or less, you know, like what happened. But she's fine. I don't know to. She's like, well, now she learned what this is. Now she's like, whoa. But she's very curious about a lot of things, you know. Today, now they in the school they're taking like an animal every day, the kids, and like they have to write like 4 or 5 facts about the animal. And we're starting to run out of animals. So no, today she brought like a bison. We were like, I don't know, fun facts about the bison. You know, I'm just gonna go over But okay, end of rant. End of silence. Now we're back to the monopolies. Forget about the social planning. Okay? I mean, China has like social planning, but with markets. Right? So it's different from like this idea of like the central planner, like the Pareto formula, where you just decide who is what. Right? China in the 70s, basically before the 70s, with Mao. China was not doing well. And they decided to adopt some degree of market competition. And since then, they've been doing much better. But there's still some central planning and 5-year plans for like the direction of the economy is going to take. So it's kind of like it's a bit of a mixed economy in that sense. Just like actually every economy is a mixed economy. We also don't have like pure market competition in Spain. I know everybody thinks this is the most capitalist country in the world. No, I think so. No, Spain is actually socialist. But there's also markets for most of us. Okay, economic systems class is over. Now we're going back to monopoly. Right? So monopoly is learning by doing. Anyway, but it's not that we shouldn't talk about economic systems. Okay, you guys are free to choose to talk about economic systems. You guys know it's good, free to choose. Free to choose by? Nobody has said free to choose. No. Free to choose, another thing from the time. Capitalism. Freedom. Who's the author of these books? No one knows. No one's read this. Free to choose is the first economics book that I ever read. I read when I was in high school,
You were in high school, so it's the 90s, 80s?
in the 90s. Who? No. Close, but
And they have to be from the same school.
from that school, sort of, not, but not as much from that school. Kind of adjacent to that school, I thought. The Austrian school, but this is not an Austrian, right? It's kind of quasi-Austrian. Chicago. Who's the most famous economist of the Chicago school?
Friedman, no.
Who?
Friedman.
Friedman. This is from
Ah, Yostas.
Milton Friedman. Actually, this one from Milton and Rose Milton.
He's a wall to Keynesianism. Huh?
What?
He's a human wall to Keynesianism.
A what?
A human wall.
Human wall to Keynesianism, that's how people describe it.
Yeah, at least that's what
Friedman, yeah.
how I see it.
A human wall to
Against Keynesianism.
What's so wrong about it?
According to Freeman, many things.
So we're not gonna debate economic systems, right? But I think people misunderstand Keynes, honestly, and on the whole school in general. But for that, you would need to be in the macro class.
Spain, I think, is a good example of Keynesianism.
Well, why don't we finish solving the model and then we see. We see. Okay, so now we want to do, what do we do? Backward induction, or do we do it like in one go? Let's do it in one go.
Yeah, one goes to, we have the formula already.
It's easier, right? So we want to maximize, choosing 1 minute 1 and 1 minute 2. The profits in period 1, so A minus B times Q1 minus, times Q1 minus C1 times Q1 plus A minus B times Q2 times Q2 minus C1 minus M times Q1 times Q2. Okay? So now I have profits in period 1. And profits in period 2. I will take first order condition with respect to Q1. And the what will be A minus 2B Q1 minus C1. But then Q1 is also here, right? So here where are we going? Q1 is not really here, it's here. Derivative of this with respect to Q1 is M plus M Q2 times Q2. And then with respect to Q2, then we get A minus 2B Q2 minus C2, which is the same as A minus C1 plus M times Q2. Okay. Okay, and then we can say, okay, this is just like an equal sign, and this is like a minus. Okay. Good. So now we have a system of 2 equations and 2 unknowns, which are symmetric,
Yeah.
which is good.
C2 shouldn't be NQ1?
What do you mean? No.
On the lower part, on the lower part,
Minus
on the lower part.
Here?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
It's NQ1, because you're
Ah, you're right. This is MQ1 and this is
NQ2.
Ah. Right. You're right. Okay. It's symmetric, I think. But let's say I don't see that. Then what can we use to solve this? Substitution, or we could use Kramer's rule, right? Yes, we're gonna do it with Kramer's. So what do I have to solve this with Kramer's rule? I'm gonna express this in matrix form. Okay, so that means I have to have like a constant on one side, where a minus c1 is the constant, right? A minus c1 and a minus c1. And on this side, I'm going to have q1 and q2. And then I'm going to have the part that's multiplying q1, right? That's going to be like here. That's going to be 2b. And the part that's multiplying q2 is going to be minus 7. Right, and here, by this value, Q2 is going to be 2e, and here minus 7. Okay, so, yeah, this is perfectly symmetric. And then we have the delta, is the determinant of that, of the main matrix, right, of A. And so that's going to be 4b squared minus n squared. And then delta 1 is going to be, I have to put this here, right? So I have a minus c1 times 2b minus n times n minus c1. Okay, so this is equal to a minus c1 times 2b minus n. Okay, and the 2 is the same.
Why is it n? Shouldn't it be minus n times
Minus n times a minus c1, because here we have a minus c1, right?
okay, yeah.
A minus c1, a minus c1, minus n, and 2b.
Yeah, but still the determinant shouldn't be
This
that
is
minus
Is ab
AB
Minus.
minus, exactly, minus.
Oh, you're right.
So it should be plus n.
You are right. Ah. Yes. Okay. And delta 2 is the same as this, right? So that means that Q1, Q2 is equal to this over this in both cases, right? So it's a minus c1 times 2b plus n, and this is 2b minus n times 2b plus n, right? So 2b plus n cancels out, and we just get a minus c1 over 2b minus n and a minus c1 over 2b minus n. This is crazy. Like you said there. Why do you say this is crazy? Because it's
No, I was talking like in our exam time constraint, like in the current way complete chemistry.
Oh, I see. Isso lá em school, pessoal. That's not crazy, bro. Isso lá em school.
no, just curious. It's like, I think that's what you meant. Like, if we had to do something like that, like what we did last class in the exam, it would be a lot. But that doesn't mean we can't just experiment, right?
Well, yeah, that's what you have in the variables.
Depends on.
What do you have in the variables? Some determinants are more than others.
No, this wouldn't be crazy for the exam. This question, classic type of question, that we do in the exam.
This one's good.
This one's good. Okay, so then
We have proof.
the quantity in period 1 is a minus c1 over 2b minus 7, right? A minus c1 over 2b minus n is greater than a minus c1 over 2b. Right? and we're dividing by something smaller, that's gonna be higher. Okay, that means that
I will get already in the planet.
if you know you're gonna produce in many periods, right, and you know that you're gonna learn the first periods, you're gonna produce more in order to learn more, right? Than if you didn't internalize the future periods. And if you had a discount rate, you could intuitively get that if the discount rate were 0, right? The discount rate were like 1, so that you fully discount the second period, so like you don't care about the future at all, then you don't get this, right? Then that's this case. This is like delta x of 0, so you don't care about the future, right? Impatient. And this is patient, right? I'll take the 1. Patient, right? So a firm that's more patient is going to say, okay, we're going to produce a lot to learn and to improve our technology in order to become good in the future, right? For example, China and batteries for electric cars, right? You had Europe producing like dinosaur-based cars, right? Old, kind of like BMW kind of dinosaurs, right? That would burn fossil fuels, but they were super proud of them and they were the best, right? And here, some cars are like the dinosaurs, right? So we're producing these like cars that we thought were fancy, based on this like ancient internal combustion engine technology from the 19th century. And then the Americans invented electric cars. But the Americans, for various reasons, didn't want to actually produce the electric cars. And then China was like, okay, this is actually our opportunity, because we don't have a very well-developed car industry. If they don't want to do electric cars because they have this incumbent bias, then we can learn how to produce them by producing a lot of them and become the best at batteries, and with that we can leapfrog the US and Europe and produce the best electric cars, right? And for that, at the beginning, like Europe was in the, let's say, European car industry was like a monopolist, right? But the monopolist that was like not thinking too much about the future, right? They were kind of impatient, they want to make profits now, they were already like the best. The other ones are like, Chinese were like, okay, we still have like this planning, even though we decide production, it's not like we allocate the cars in kind of like Soviet style. We have some planning that makes us think maybe a bit more about the future, arguably, right? And then we say, okay, if they're not doing electric cars, that's kind of like the location in the differentiated product space where like we have an opportunity, right? It's underdeveloped. And so they decided to produce very large quantities of electric cars. Actually, the Chinese electric companies are going broke, right? But the government doesn't care. They're like, okay, we'll give you money anyway. We'll keep lending you money so that you can become better and keep lowering the price of batteries until you basically become like the market leaders. Okay? Just like in the market. Okay, and if you internalize and understand like these models, you're going to be able to think about, it's going to be tools to think about all these things that are going on. In a much, it's going to kind of like, maybe we're thinking about this rather than the story and we're like, okay, oh yeah, what's going on? We know that in China is going to do electric cars, but you couldn't quite express it, in a precise way. Oh yeah, that's because they're learning by doing, right? Doesn't matter if the companies lose money because they have this vision for the future, they're very patient. And they have like a strategic interest in becoming good in other industries, right? And then they see like this gap in the market. Why in the US and Europe do electric cars? This may be a more interesting question. Well, both is interesting because we don't know who's right. Because you can say, well, why are you subsidizing all these electric companies and now they're all losing money because there's so many of them. They have like thousands of electric car companies. They're producing so many electric cars that the price of electric cars goes down so much in China that they don't make any money. right? Is this, am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm right. I'm not always right, but maybe I'm not always.
Okay.
So who's crazy? This for not doing electric cars or China for doing too many? But too many, well, too many maybe if you only think of the profits today. If you think of the profits today and the profits tomorrow, maybe you sacrifice your profits now in order to make more profit in the future because of learning by doing.
So that solution is the one for the monopolies and this one the one for the planet? Or what?
And that solution is the one for the, no, both are the monopolists. Here, it's just that this is a monopolist that only cares about period one and has like a discount factor of 0,
Okay.
right? Discounts the futures completely. It's impatient. And this one is like a patient one, right? Patient monopolist will learn by doing.
But when the planet enters then?
No, there's no plan. You could think, I'm thinking of China not as a planner here, but as a patient monopolist. Really, we should think about oligopoly. We're simplifying a lot of things, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we learned something from this exercise. We learned something. We don't learn everything from this. We learned something. Okay. I think I didn't offend anyone, but if I did, it doesn't matter because we're here to offend you.
Exactly.
You're supposed to challenge. That's it. Like so, yeah. I have a license to offend. Okay. Good. But I'm not a very offensive guy, so I probably won't use it. Okay. What outcome would be implemented by a benevolent social planner who fully controlled the monopolies? Oh, now we have a social planner.
Exactly. That was the question I was doing.
Okay.
Almost like.
Because this looks like the optimal solution for a planner.
No, that's not the social planner. No. No.
No, we have to do the welfare thing.
This is the monopolist.
We have to do the welfare thing for
Now we have to do welfare for the social planner. The monopolist cares about profits. This monopolist cares about profits in the future as well as profits today. The social planner cares about welfare.
Exactly. We have to do the integrity.
Social planner cares about welfare, okay? Social planner goes and tells the monopolist, you only care about money. What about the consumers? What about the environment?
For environment.
It's like this guy, what's it called? What was his name? No, what was this activist called? Very famous guy from the 90s from America.
Wow.
That used to like tell firms that they only care about profits and they need to care about the consumers and the environment and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
forgot
like
his
a
name.
Thunberg 30 years ago.
People forgot about this guy, luckily. But what? No, they actually internalized. Like, especially now we care about ESG and all this stuff. Like,
That's because the world's about to end. I mean, we're forced into caring.
No, there was not about to end, guys. Don't come at me with this doomerism.
Well,
Okay.
economics is the dismal science, right?
We are the dismal science. But we are the dismal science. Okay, economics. Have you guys heard of this? Dismal science. It's called the dismal science. What does dismal mean? For the non-American, the non-English speaker, dismal. What's dismal mean?
Dismal means pessimistic.
Pessimistic, right? It's like, oh, everything's bad. There's not enough money to pay for the pensions. You know, oh, we want to open more kindergartens. No, there's no money. You know, let the kids stay at home with their aunt or something. And dismal science, okay? We're always trying to balance the budget. It's like, oh, the debt's exploding. Okay, so we call that dismal science, but that doesn't mean, guys, that doesn't mean we have to be dismal people,
No.
right? Am I dismal? Do I look like a very negative guy to you?
No. We have to force it a little bit sometimes, but
No, I'm a human being. Okay? It's like,
It's mostly an expression, right?
it's
So
a,
when there was no technology for the Industrial Revolution, the only source of profits was capital. But in the end, economics is going as a dismal science because we predicted that we shouldn't, like humans shouldn't reproduce because capital and the planet Earth was fixed.
what?
That's what Malthus said.
And
It's so
Malthus,
deep.
yeah, Malthus was very dismal, maybe the most dismal.
Yeah.
of all, right? But Malthus wasn't an economist, he was a priest.
Well, but Adam Smith wasn't an economist, he was a philosopher, but we consider
Yeah,
him the
but
father of
Adam
economics.
Smith wasn't Malthusian, so most economists are not Malthusian, actually.
No, because
So I would
we
say
don't have technology.
economists, no, I think economists is called the dismal science because we care about scarcity and we talk a lot about scarcity. We are the people who are supposed to remind people sometimes that resources are scarce and finite, and that there are trade-offs in life, right? And in government and in business and in everything. So we're economists have this stereotype, maybe for good reason, that like, okay, economists see us like part of our responsibility is like we're allowed to be a little bit negative sometimes in telling people, okay, look, if you want everyone to have like the best healthcare and the best schools and the best everything, and you want to make it free for people, somebody's gonna have to pay for it. Okay, there's always somebody paying for it. Okay, so you can say we don't have everything free, but there's always trade-offs. Okay, if you do that, you may have to impose, for example, very high taxes. And if you impose very high taxes on the people of your country, then a lot of people are not going to. They say, okay, well, you either impose those taxes on the middle class, like in Europe, or you impose those taxes on the rich, or like in the US.
Like nowhere.
Or no, many places. But if you impose the taxes on the rich, then rich people are not going to want to live in your country. And so they're going to take their money with them and move somewhere else, to Dubai or something. Okay? And then they're going to take their companies with them, and then you're not going to have companies in the country, and so nobody's going to have money to be taxed, right? This is kind of, so it's not free to be like, oh, we'll just tax the 1%. But in the end, you run out of other people's money as well, like Margaret Thatcher liked to say. You know this phrase? Socialism kind of like stops working when you run out of other people's money.
Then they blame the States, the United States.
They blame the socialists.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the States. It's always easier to blame someone else for your problems,
Yeah.
and it's more fun.
of
But,
course.
yeah, but I wouldn't say Margaret Thatcher was a coward.
Margaret Thatcher was.
I wouldn't say Margaret Thatcher was a coward. Like,
Well, a
she
coward?
wasn't like blaming socialism. She was like trying to recover the UK from like the greatest depression in its history.
Okay, yeah. And she also has great phrases.
Yeah, so.
Look, I don't know if Margaret Thatcher was like perfect, but she was definitely. She wasn't a social planner actually.
She was kind.
Okay,
Yeah.
social planner cares about welfare, right? Not profit, so they're gonna maximize welfare. So how do we write welfare? Welfare is gonna be consumer surplus, right?
Consumer surplus plus producer. No? It's only consumer.
So the social planner is gonna maximize the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So it's gonna choose the quantity in period 1, knowing that in period 2,
Is affected by.
in period 2 they're gonna behave like a monopolist, right? consumer surplus is the integral between 0 and Q1 of A minus B S ds minus P. No, on the right, this is
This
minus the price.
PSDS.
Yes, minus
and
minus
cost, no?
the price at Q1
Oh yeah.
ds, right? Plus the profits, which are P of Q1 times Q1 minus, minus C1 times Q1. Okay, so that's the consumer surplus in period 1, and then there's going to be and the profits, right? It's consumer surplus and profits in period 1. And this is Q2 of Q1 A minus B times S minus P of Q2 of Q1 ds plus P of Q2 of Q1 times Q2 of Q1 minus C1 minus C times Q1 times C2. Right? So consumer surplus in period 2 and then profits in period 2. Okay, we already filled up 4 boards, huh? And we're just in 1B.
Yeah, I think I filled like 10 papers, so we're good.
I'm really slow this year. I'm one of the problems in class, maybe we won't be able to cover everything. But that's okay, It's like, let's enjoy this class. Let's have fun with it. I don't know why, but I'm teaching different this year. Like before I would teach like much faster and very faster now. I don't know if it's because I'm tired or I'm really relaxed. Maybe because I'm the director of myself. So maybe because I'm actually managing the director of the next, like running after me if I can finish. Or something. But whenever it's not, it's like I'm slower. I said, well, maybe I'm just getting old, I'm getting older, and my kids are getting older, and they make me more tired.
It's not 5 years old. They're not getting older.
They're getting older than
It
before.
doesn't qualify as getting older yet.
They're 5 and 3. Last year it was 2. You think a 2-year-old runs as much as a 3-year-old? Or is that crazy? No. In a way, the kids as they get older get easier, but they also get more difficult. It's like there's a conservation of energy and stuff. It's like now they go to the bathroom by themselves, but they also want to play until like 11:30 or something. And before they would just fall asleep at 9 p.m. Or just like sing a song. Alright. So let's solve the social planner problem. You see the social planner here, they only decide quantity in period 1, right? And then in period 2, the monopolist is going to choose Q2 of Q1, such that Q2 of Q1 is equal to the monopolist quantity, which is A minus C2 over 2B, right? So this is A minus C2 over 2B here. So now, but there's all these moving parts here, right? Because the social planner has to take into account. Okay, if I increase the quantity more here, that's going to increase consumer surplus, right? And it's going to reduce profits if I increase above the profit maximizing level. And then here, if I increase the quantity in period 1, in period 2, the cost is gonna be lower, and that means the quantity is gonna be higher, right? So that's going to increase profits and consumer surplus in the second period, right?
You said that the first period, welfare is also increased if we increase Q1.
In the first period, profits,
Profits increase.
they could go up or down, it depends on where you are. But let's say we are at the profit maximizing level. From the social plan's point of view, you probably want to decrease profits, right? If you increase the quantity from there, you were already at the maximum profits, so you're going to probably like reduce them, right? And that's some of the surplus is going to go to consumers, which before you were taking into account at all,
Okay.
right? Before we were just maximizing this part and this part, and now we're adding these two big terms here,
Okay.
right?
But and how do you know which one increases, like which force is higher? If the consumer surplus increases more or the profits decreases more?
Well, at some point they're gonna equalize, right? And that's where everything has to equalize. There's gonna be so many moving parts, right? It's like I want to balance this and this, but I also want to take this into account. So it's a fairly complicated problem, right? It's not always like everywhere. Let's see. I mean, first order condition. You see what I mean? It's like the social planner has to realize now that if they move Q1, if they move the Q1 like wheel, that's gonna start moving now like 7 different wheels. Right? One that starts moving like consumer surplus in period 1, the other one that moves like the cost in period 2, and that moves the quantity in period 2, and that will then moves the consumer surplus in period 2 and the profits in period 2. You see what I mean? All of these are like derivatives in this, right? It's gonna be like the change in consumer surplus period 1 with respect to Q1 plus the change in profits of period 1 with respect to Q1 plus the change in consumer surplus in period 2 with respect to Q2 times the change in Q2 with respect to Q1, because I know the monopolist is going to change strategy, right? Plus the change in profits in period 2 with respect to Q1 times the change in quantity. So, change in profits with respect to Q2, change in quantity with respect to Q1, plus the change in profits with respect to cost, times the change in cost with respect to Q1. Okay, so we have how many moving parts here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? Like wheels kind of turn. You see what I mean? Before we only had this and this. But now we have this. Oh no, we also have this. Right? And now we have this too.
And is there nothing cancelling there?
So, yeah, let's say stuff canceling.
Well,
That's fine, it's gonna make things easier. But I'm trying to
Just picture it.
picture like what's going on. Like, conceptually, okay? Because you can do that and solve for the equation, but you can also be like, okay, what's going on and why? I mean, what's the intuition here? What does the intuition change? The intuition changes because you're adding some more moving parts in the objective function, right? You're adding that. If you change the point, it also modifies consumer surplus, and you're going to internalize that as a social planner. You weren't internalizing it as a monopolist. And you're also going to internalizing the indirect effect of consumer surplus in year 2 because the monopolist changing the quantity. Alright, now let's do it. But of course, we can simplify things before we take this derivative. But when we take the derivatives actually in this way? Well, we could do two things. Okay, fine. We'll play your game. And we could just do these intervals and simplify them, right? And then just like take like a simplified version of the derivative. It would be easier. Or we could just take the derivatives of the different objects and plug them in to those, so we can sort of get more intuition of what things are.
What I
one of them is slower and the latter, and then this one is pretty fast. Your version. So, but I'm already very slow. How about this? Today we don't take a break. Besides, we're not even gonna manage to finish the problem set. I mean, this is not tiring, right? Because we're talking so much and we're just taking it easy. We're gonna take it easy and we're not gonna take a break, okay? We need a break. This class today is so relaxing. I mean, come on. You guys already did the problem set. Now we're just like reviewing it here.
5 minutes break.
5 minute break.
Yes, bathroom break.
So bathroom break.
Yeah, bathroom
Okay,
break.
we'll do a bathroom break.
Now or later?
No.
Exactly. Now it's too soon.
Okay, what's the derivative of consumer surplus in period 1?
Jose, one question. In the last part, when we do the profit, we are multiplying
This?
the last
profits
term.
are all
The
this.
last, okay. When we multiply by C2
Oh,
or
no,
Q2?
Q2. Okay. Let's simplify the things and just take the derivative of the simplified stuff. Okay, so this here is the integral from 0 to 1. Well, this is going to be P of 1 times Q1, right?
Exactly.
So that one's going to cancel out with this. So we can cancel out this and this. Good. And then this is going to be P of Q2, Q1, Q2, Q1, Q2, Q1, so it's going to cancel out this. Okay, so now it's simple, right? So now we have the integral between 0 and Q1 of A minus B times S ds. Okay, and the integral between 0 and Q2 Q1 of A minus B times S ds. What's the integral between 0 and Q1 of A minus B times S?
So it's
Constant times Q1.
AS
Right? A
minus
times
BS squared over 2.
A times S minus B times S squared over 2. Over 2 evaluated at 0 equal 0 and S equal 2. Right? So that's equal to A times Q1 minus B times Q1 squared over 2. Similarly, the integral between 0 and Q2 is equal to Q1 of A minus B times S ds is equal to the same thing. Whatever we do, is equal to Q2. Of Q1 and is equal to 0. So it's going to equal to A times Q2 minus B times Q2 equals Q1 squared over 2. Okay. And then consumer surplus plus profits was this integral. Now it's going to be consumer surplus 1 plus by 1 is going to be equal to that integral. So it's A times Q1 minus B times Q1 squared over 2 minus C1 times Q1. Right? And then let's add 2 here. Consumer surplus 2 times by 2 is going to be equal to this plus A times Q2 Q1 minus B times Q2 of Q1 squared over 2 minus C1 minus M times Q1 times Q2 of Q1. all of this is equal to this. So now we need to take the derivative of all of this with respect to Q1. Is there anything more we can simplify? I don't think so.
I mean, no, because for example, you could put a minus 1 in parentheses times q1, and in the other,
True. We could take some common factors.
exactly, you can take some common factors and make it okay.
Okay. True. We could do this. We could say it's a minus c1 times q1 minus b times q1 over 2 plus a minus c1 times q2 of q1 plus m times q1 times q2 of q1 minus b q2 times q2 of q1 square root of q2. So now with this simplified objective function, we have to take first order conditions. So first order condition. With respect to Q1, which is actually the only one. Derivative of that is going to be a minus C1 minus derivative of b times Q1 square over 2 is 2b Q1 over 2, so it's just b times Q1 plus a minus C1 times Q2 of Q1. So that's what I use. A minus C1 times the derivative of Q2 with respect to Q1. But what's Q2? Remember, Q2 of Q1. Well, you know what? I'm just going to call it derivative of Q2 with respect to Q1. For now. This is going to appear many times. Plus m times derivative of Q1 times Q2, derivative of Q1 Q2 of Q1 plus m times Q1 times the derivative of Q2 with respect to Q1 minus b times 2 Q2 of Q1 over 2, so it's times Q2 of Q1 times the derivative of Q2 with respect to Q1. Okay? And so now let's group the terms that have derivative of Q2 with respect to Q1. So we have a minus C1 minus BQ1 plus m times Q2 of Q1 plus a minus C1 plus m times Q1 minus b times Q2 of Q1. All of these times delta Q2. Okay? This is actually very simple. So this is the same of this. Okay. Now we need to say Q2, what Q2 of Q1 was. This was A minus C1 plus n times q1 over 2b. So that's what this is. A minus c1 plus n times q1 over 2b. And then the derivative of this with respect to q1 is m over 2b. So it is just m over 2. And this q1 is okay. Now I have to take everything that has q1 and like separate it and answer for q1. Okay. So what has q1 here? This has q1, and then there's q1 here.
And then inside of parentheses, well, yeah,
And then here, this has q1, and
this is
this has q1 here.
So that's just let a minus c1 to one side, and then you pass everything to the other side because we're missing an equal 0, right?
And this is
And
equal
then you
to
take common factor of q1 and then you pass it all over.
yeah. I mean, what's the question here? We have to solve for this.
We have to compare
We're gonna come and by putting on social planner. Okay, so we're going
the
to solve
social
it.
planner
Is that
quantities.
is there any sense in which planner period 1 output is selected so that price equals amount of the cost?
But first is what outcome would be implemented by Elena on the social planner. So we need to find out the social planner quantities.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's really, the algebra is messy, but it's not so complicated because once you pass everything to the right hand side, then you take common denominator and a lot of terms go when you multiply them by 2b, and then it's a very small expression afterwards. We could just write a final expression.
Okay, let's just write the final expression.
Yeah, because if not, we're gonna lose a lot of time.
Okay, so what's the final expression?
So again, quantities are gonna be like the same, and it's a minus c1 over b minus m. Bueno, yo no sé si ustedes.
Well, you guys got to this. You guys did this. When you got like the same to step,
Yeah, more or less.
more or less.
It's just, I didn't do the integrals because I realized like demands were linear, so we were just basically talking about triangles and rectangles.
Okay, that's
So-
fine. It's the same as we did to us. So you did it to us. Integrals are triangles.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can write some of these things in terms of the prices, right? Because here A minus BQ1 is the price of grade 1, right? I'm not saying that, it's just saying to gain intuition later. But well, for now, let's just solve it, so like without thinking too much. Let's do A minus C1. Here we have plus M over 2B times A minus C1, right? I'm just going to write the constant parts, and then we'll write the parts that are cubed. Plus A minus C1 times M over 2B, right? A minus C1 over 2B, plus M, here, A minus C1 over 2B, times M over 2B. Okay, so this one appears twice. So this is basically oh no, yeah. So this is a minus c1 times 1 plus 2 times m over 2b plus m over 2b squared, and is the m squared too? M over 2b squared. I kind of want to get square, but I don't. And I'm trying to simplify that. A minus c1 comes out. This element square, that would do, but it doesn't. This is b. Oh, but this is times b, which I forgot. So this it's not going to choose one. It's m over. M over 2b. Right? So, okay, so it's just m over 2b, and so this becomes m over b plus m over 2b. This is like 3 halves times m over b. Because there's a b here, cancels out with this b. So then we have m over 2b here. Oh no, wait, this is. No.
I don't understand.
No, this is, we do have m over 2b plus m over 2b, that's m over b, plus m times b, sorry, b times m over 4b squared. So it's one of the b's cancels out, and we get m over 4b. So it's going to be 5/4 m over b. Okay, and that's the constant part. Now we have to do the other. Did I do something wrong here? This 5/4? This is very weird.
I don't get that part.
I don't get it, but the problem.
I don't know why I don't have this structure.
What I don't understand is where the m over 2b times a minus c1 comes.
This?
No, the previous one.
M.
Lower equation, second part.
This?
Yes, that one. I don't see where it comes from.
That's because we have m
Yeah.
over 2b times a minus 1.
And the other part?
We're taking common factor of m for the whole expression, basically. No?
Well, I'm just trying to take the constant part that doesn't have to 1 here. A minus c1 over 2b
Times m, okay, yeah.
times m.
Okay, yeah.
And now I want to take the common factor at least a minus c1. A minus c1 times 1 plus m over 2b times 2. Okay, so m over b plus m over, this really is m over c1. This is not for this, so this is a minus c1 over 2b times this is a minus c1 over 2. Times m over 2, so it should be a minus c1 over times m over 4b. So it's over 5m over 4b. That's what I get. That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. We made a mistake, but we're
But you have
Okay.
the
Oh,
equals
there's
something.
more, yeah.
Ah, o sea, la sabía, okay.
Okay, and now we have to say part of that. Minus V7, same by the level. Okay, now we have to have Q1, and decide everything that has Q1. Q1 times B. Here we're gonna have N squared over 2B. And with the minus because we have the other side. Minus B squared over 2B. Here we're gonna have M times Q1 times M over 2B. So it's also gonna be minus M squared over 2B. Say M squared over B. M squared over B. And then we have the last one, right? This one, which is going to be Q1 times M times B over B. So Q1 times M over 2 times M over 2B.
So it's m squared over 4b.
So it's going to be, and that's going to be with a minus, right? So it's going to be a plus here. Plus m squared over 4b, right? Times Q1. This was a minus. This one had a plus, so now it's a minus. Okay. This is what I get, guys.
Wow.
I mean, I could take the B out here and have like a square here and here, maybe. I don't know if it simplifies a lot. Q1 social planner is equal to A1 C1 times 1 plus 5 fourths times mod B over divided by B minus M squared over B plus M squared over 4B. And I don't think I forgot anything. I think this is it. You guys got this?
I got minus C divided by B minus F.
It's not the most beautiful expression ever.
I have a much simpler result, I think.
Maybe I made a mistake somewhere.
I don't think so, but because the math seems correct.
What do you get?
A minus C over B minus
Minus seven, minus seven.
Sí, sí, eso.
That sounds.
What do you get? 2.
That sounds better. This is probably wrong. Let's do it again.
I think we should just write the final expression. Yeah.
Okay, the final
And
expression
it's
is.
interesting because again quantity 1 and quantity 2 are going to be the same, but the social planner makes the monopolist produce more.
You're still laughing.
I think those are embarrassing. I mean, but let's try to think of it in a different way to see if there's a better way to do this.
Jose, the next question that you asked, which is like, is there a sense in which the planner's period one output is selected so that price equals marginal cost? So are you saying that is there a way in which the social planner effectively chooses that, or is there a way in which we can think about this problem in terms of price equals marginal cost?
I think there has to be a way that we think of this as price equals marginal cost. So why don't we think about that, and maybe we can do it again in a different way. That's not as algebraically difficult. And maybe we do it right this time. Okay.
But why, I've got a question, why is Q2 as a function of Q1?
Why is Q2 a function of Q1? Because the planner knows that in the second period, the monopolist is going to have a different quantity
Based on how much you
based on what the marginal cost is. So if the planner decides to use a very high quantity in the first period, the monopolist is going to have a lower cost in the second period.
Like C2 equals Q1 minus M
Yeah.
times C1. For example.
Okay, let's go back to square one here. We have social planner that's going to maximize that.
That's another question I have. When we draw the graph, is there, like, depending on how much you choose the slope of M, you can have a corner solution. Or I was just crazy at the moment, which is.
So we have C1, C1, and
And then
the
it's,
total surplus is going to be 0, right? So it's going to be this triangle plus this rectangle.
but then when you draw C2 is like, because I think C is lower than A, you have like this downward sloping line because it's based on Q1, it's downward sloping C2, right?
What's going on, guys?
I'm like not understanding the Q2 as a function of, so if when I do the derivative of the maximum of that upper expression, I get a much simpler equation.
So you think the error that I made is in the function of Q2 as a function of Q1? Or you don't understand why there is a function of Q2 as a function of Q1 in the first place?
So the thing is, when I do the first order condition, the maximum of Q1.
Maximize with respect to Q1, right? But Q2 as a function of Q1 is because in the second period it's not the central planner but the monopolist. That's going to be taking the decision. So you should think of this as kind of like a game. You see what I mean? This is a game and there's a reaction function in the second period. You see what I mean? And what's the reaction function? It's Q2 as a function of Q1, which is the monopoly quantity, where you have a cost of C1 minus M times Q1. Right? Which is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, A minus C1 plus M times Q1 divided by 2B.
What's the explanation again? Because I had exactly the same question.
What's the explanation for this?
Yeah, I mean,
You're in social planner. You're in period 1. You decide Q1. In period 2, you let it to the market, right? And so you give it to the monopolist. You sell the company to a monopolist. And now the monopolist is going to decide.
But that's not
Q2.
Why? Monopoly doesn't, you decide Q2.
No, you're a social planner. You decide Q1.
I
It
thought
says,
we choose.
the report says, that's what it says. It says, what outcome will be implemented by the benevolent social planner to fully control the monopoly? Oh no, what I'm doing here is like the C. You're right. In B, you perfectly control the monopolist. So you choose Q1 and Q2. Sorry, I was doing problem C, 1C. not one B. So all of this is for one C. So this is what you get for one B.
Yeah, I thought we were doing B.
Yes, no, we were doing B, but actually we were doing C because I confused it. So all of this is for C.
All of this is for C.
So this is gonna be 1 plus 5 and for C, let's go this. Well, for C, maybe it doesn't ask you to compare the monopolies or multiply the monopolies to slightly increase.
Slightly.
That's why it's so complicated, because it just wants to see the marginal. It doesn't want to solve the whole thing. But we did it. Amazing. Okay, this is C. Okay, guys, my bad.
I didn't do
Me
this.
malo. Mala mía. Okay, that's why everybody was getting confused here. Were you getting confused?
It's been confused all the time.
That's so it's more. I was doing 1C. I was thinking of 1C. 1B. So, what's the difference between 1B and 1C? Do you guys get it? Do you guys understand what's going on here?
No.
No.
Maybe not.
Okay, what's going on? In problem 1B, it asks, what if the social planner completely controls the monopolist forever, in period 1 and in period 2? In problem 1C, it asks, what if the social planner controls the monopolist in period 1, and then the monopolist controls the monopolist, exceeds controlling in period 2? I'm trying to think of examples of these, and I want to say examples, but like, I'm done with examples. We first need to get the algebra right? I'm trying to be like fun here and try to provide like talk or like connect to economics. I was thinking, for example, like when the Kuhn was intervening during COVID, the Clinica, right? And the government controlled the Kuhn during the pandemic, and now the Kuhn is controlled by the Kuhn, right? The University of Navarra. Right? So that sometimes like, maybe the government takes the social planner takes control, but then it's not forever, right? Yeah, example, maybe you could think of. Or you could think that maybe in China, the government kind of controls the auto industry at the beginning, but then eventually it's like, okay, now you guys have to compete, right? So it tells them how much, how many cars you're supposed to produce at the beginning, and like, we want you guys to produce like a lot of cars, maybe not directly, but like indirectly, in the system to produce a lot of cars. But then it's like, at some point, you're on your own, and you have to survive on your own, right?
Yeah.
And so that one's problem C. You see what I mean? And that's what I was trying to do there, because there I was assuming that this, right, that there's like it's like a game, and there's a list response function, which is going to be the monopolist choosing this dependent in period 2, and it's going to choose it according to this equation, because that's the solution to the monopolist problem. But taking into account that the marginal cost is going to be affected by how much the social planner produces in period 1. That's 1C. It's a game. 1B is just an optimization problem. Okay?
The first part.
The 1B. So let's do 1B. This is for C. This is 1C. Game. Okay? In 1B, it's not a game. It's just an optimization problem. The monopoly is going to choose Q1 and Q2. And it's going to be easier. Okay? So, now we're on the title. No, I'm tired. You guys are relaxed. Well, you're just tired from seeing me work hard. Like, you look at it, he's working so much, makes me tired.
We're very excited class.
Some of you had like a class before this, right?
No, well, yes,
Yeah.
but I another thing. I don't
Ocho de la
think-
mañana.
Almost better, right?
You guys are on your phones there, you know, reading Facebook or something. I mean, like, well, I'm sweating so much from just seeing him, like, on the board, trying to solve 1C. And 1C doesn't even say you have to solve it, so you're
You
just
said, can you provide an example?
Actually, a couple of us are discussing how are we gonna be able to solve that in an exam.
That's what you're thinking. You're just tired from thinking the professor's a little crazy. He doesn't have a good sense of time and space and the difficulty of the problem, so it worries you what I might come up with, and I don't even realize.
Yeah, that's what happened, right? Exactly that. Like, it's like,
Oh yeah, criminals are so easy. Fundamental theorem of calculus for babies. No, don't worry, the exam's gonna be fine, guys. I mean, it's gonna be fine. Exams like all of you, if you study like normally, will be able to pass the exam. And then it always happens. There's always a distribution of grades, and some people get to solve everything, and some people don't. And we're gonna find out who's who. That's it.
Jose, about 1B, when you say the price equals margin, what do you mean? Like for the second question of part B?
I don't remember what it means.
Okay.
We're gonna think about it.
Okay.
Let's do it. Okay, so 1B. Now it's easier because now we just have to maximize that choosing Q1 and Q2, not Q2 as a function of Q1. And we say, okay, we actually simplify those integrals by saying, okay, this is like a triangle, right? A minus B times Q, right? Here Q1. We're gonna have a triangle plus a rectangle. So we're gonna have C1, right? And if Q1 is this, then total surplus is the area between C1 and the one, right? And the area of this is Q1. Okay, is equal to, let's do the triangle first. The triangle has height equal to B times Q1, or Q1 over B. The height of this is what? This is A, this is Q1, the base is Q1, we have Q1, and then this, how much does it fall here? If it has slope minus B, it's going to fall, here. Well, when this is equal to 0, then Q is equal to A over B. So it's going to be Q1 squared over B. That's going to be the area of the triangle. Is that right?
What is,
No.
are you doing consumer surplus
No,
or what are we
sorry.
doing?
Consumer surplus.
Ah,
Consumer surplus is going to be the triangle,
yeah.
right? The triangle has base Q1 and height Q1 times B. What's the height of the triangle?
But then you have to divide it over 2, right? Because it's base.
And then we have to divide it, over 2 because it's a triangle, and
Uh-huh.
we have B times Q1 squared
Times B. Mhm.
over 2. Okay? This is the triangle. And then the rectangle is even easier because it's going to be Q1 times the height of this. And the height of this is the price, which is A minus B times Q1 minus C1. Right? The height of the triangle is A minus B times Q1 minus C1. Okay, so this actually simplifies even more because it's Q1 times A minus C minus B times Q1 squared. So then we get triangle plus rectangle is equal to B is going to be A minus C1 times Q1 minus B times Q1 squared over 2. And then the second period is the same,
Yeah, which is the
but with Q2. Okay? So then objective function is going to be, let's call it omega, well, no, let's call it welfare. Welfare is a minus c1 times q1 minus b times q1 squared over 2 plus a minus c1 plus m times q1 times q2
Minus b q2 squared over 2.
minus b times q2 squared over 2.
That's right.
Okay, so that's that. And now we don't think of q2 as a function of q1.
Sorry, q2.
We just think of now it's just q2. Okay, now we take first order condition of this. First order condition with respect to q1 is going to be a minus c1 minus b times q1
Plus and q2.
plus m times q2. That's it. And then q2, we're going to a minus c1 plus m times q1 minus b times q2 equals 0. Okay? So those are the first order conditions. Now we have a system of 2 by 2. It's symmetric, I think.
Yeah, it's asymmetric.
It's symmetric again. So what do we use? We could just assume that the quantities are the same and solve it, or we could use Cramer's rule for substitution. But then basically it doesn't matter. The solution is going to be, now you guys tell me the solution. Q1 is going to be equal to Q2. It's going to be equal to what you said before, right? A minus C1.
I'll say A minus C1.
Or what? Or M minus B, B minus M.
B minus m.
Okay, so we're going to get this. This system is easier.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, because we just put Q here, we're going to get B minus M. And that's one of the things. Alright, good. But is there a sense in which we can say that the firms are doing price equals marginal cost? Not the firms, the social planning. Right? Remember, price equals marginal cost was the perfect competition outcome. So the social is the efficient outcome. This was the social planning we choose. The monopolist doesn't do price equals marginal cost. That's marginal revenue equal marginal cost. Right? Price is A minus B times Q1. That's price 1, right? So this is the same as saying that P1 is equal to C1 minus M times Q2. And this one says that P2 is equal to C1 minus M times Q1. Okay? And this is C2. So in the second period, it's clear that price equals marginal cost. Right? A minus Q2 is price, and then C1 minus M times Q1 is marginal cost in period 2. Remember, period down, right? This is like minus C2. So the second period, price equals marginal cost. Okay, and that's it. Oh, but the question says, is there a sense that in the second period? The
Yeah.
second period is open, so.
Yeah, the second period.
No, but then it says, is there a sense in which the branch period 1 output is chosen? So the second period, it chooses price equals marginal cost, it's obvious, it's transparent, it's clear, it's beautiful. In the first period, we have price of 1 equals the cost of producing period 1 minus M times Q2.
Yeah.
So is that marginal cost?
Only if you produce 0 in period 2.
If you produce 0, it will be marginal cost. because now it's C1. But there's a sense in which we can think of this as marginal cost. If we think of marginal cost as, because now we have like a two-period problem, right? So if we think of cost not as period by period, but as the total cost of producing sum across periods, and then the marginal cost in period 1 is the derivative of total cost in period 1 and 2 with respect to quantity in period 1. That's the real overall super bottom line marginal cost of producing period 1. And what's the derivative of total cost in both periods? The derivative of C1 times Q1 plus C2 times Q2, total cost, total among units, total among periods, with respect to Q1 is equal to C1 plus the derivative of C2 with respect to Q1 times Q2. And that's going to be equal to
M.
minus M times Q2. So that's the marginal cost of producing period 1. If you think of not the total cost of period 1, but the total cost
Like social.
overall. No, not the social cost. The total cost of producing in both periods. You see what I mean? The cost of producing all the units across periods is C1 times Q1, that's the total cost of period 1, plus C2 plus Q2. The derivative of that total cost with respect to Q1 has this extra term. You see what I mean? So in that sense, the social planner is doing principal marginal cost. But take into account that the cost in the two periods are linked. Alright? And then, now let's think about 1C.
So the final answer is what?
Sorry?
It was in which sense it was.
Esa iba a ser.
I mean, this is the final answer. And this is the marginal total cost across all periods.
Exactly, but that's for C already.
No, this
C1
one's no, this one's B.
Ah, this one is taken.
This is B.
C1 minus M Q2.
And then C says, given that the monopolies will be selecting the period 2 output level, with the planner like the monopolies to slightly increase the level of period 1 output above that identified in A. Can you provide an intuition for this? Well, we have it here, right? Let's think of this first condition. And let's think about this, how this compares to problem A. This first order condition is exactly the same as the first order condition in problem A. Except that instead of minus 2b, we're going to have minus b. Right? If we had been in problem A, we would have had marginal revenue instead of price here and here. That would have been problem A. But here we have this. I know that we're going back now like a few hours. So let's think of the first order condition in problem A versus suppose we had done the backward reduction. We didn't do problem A by backward reduction, but if we had, then what would have been the first order condition?
Remember I sent you an email where I told you that we had already answered? I think it's because, like, I did by backward induction, I thought I had already answered, but that's what was confusing.
Okay, everything's clear now, I think. 1b, is it clear?
Yeah. Yeah, 1B.
1B, we're good?
Yeah.
One B is clear. 1C
It's not.
was hard when we tried to do the algebra, but actually the problem doesn't ask you to do the algebra because whoever wrote this problem, who was someone who walked on this earth before I was born, probably. I don't know who was it. And whoever wrote this problem, which wasn't realized, okay, we don't want to solve that algebra, but we wanted to think. So let's try to think, okay? We always talk about critical thinking and trying to solve problems and stuff like that. And now's the chance to do it, okay? So what the problem asks is, given that the monopolist will be selecting the period 2 output level, not the planner, would the planner like the monopolist to slightly increase the level, slightly, marginal, increase the level of period 1 output above that identified in A?
Yeah.
Can you provide an intuition for this? Okay? So let's try to think about this. Let's do backward induction. Okay? So let's do A with backward induction. So that means in period 2, positive 2, it's going to be having this exponential function, and we know what's going to be. It's going to be Q2 of Q1 equals A minus C2, which is going to be minus C1 plus A plus C1 over 2. Okay? This is going to be true. This is going to be the rest response function of the monopolist in the second period, and that's going to apply both to 1A and 1B. Okay? So this function is going to be the same. Okay? Same. Okay, now in 1A, what we're doing is the change in the profits in period 1 with respect to Q1 plus the change in profits in period 2 with respect to Q1 times the change, with respect to Q2, the Q1 plus the direct effect of Q1 on the profits because of the cost, right? E by 1, E by 2 with respect to the cost, to DC2 with respect to Q1. Okay? Equals 0. That's the first order condition in 1A. You see what I mean? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moving parts. Okay? Direct effect on the profits in period 1. Direct effect on the profits in period 2 times the best response function derivative in period 2 plus the change in profit with respect to marginal cost in period 2 with respect to marginal cost change because of Q, because of the learning by doing. Okay? Learning by doing has 2 effects in Q2. It changes the cost, but then also through the cost, it changes the quantity. Right? You can think of profits in period 2 as a function of Q2 and the marginal cost in Q2. It's a function of 2 variables. And both are functions of Q1. Now we're running C. Now we have the consumer surplus part that we have here, right? So now it's going to be the change, it's going to be the same. All of this is going to be in the social planners, plus the change in consumer surplus with respect to Q1, plus the change in consumer surplus in period 2 with respect to Q1, right? But it is being the change in consumer surplus, you can also think of it as change with respect to Q2 times the change in Q2 with respect to Q1 plus the change in consumer surplus in 2 with respect to the marginal cost in 2 DC2 the Q1, okay? So all of these are the same, right? So if we're gonna evaluate the first condition at the quantity, this is gonna be 0, right? So we only need to do this part and figure out if this part is positive or negative. If it's positive, it means I want to, at the previous level, I want to slightly increase the quantity, right? So we need to do a change in consumer surplus with respect to Q1. This is gonna be positive because the monopolist wasn't taking consumer surplus into account, so it was producing a bit less, right, compared to the one that would increase consumer surplus. I think it's gonna be positive. I mean, we can also do the algebra. Changing consumer surplus with respect to Q2. Same, right? These I don't know because it's, but yes, probably.
Yeah, that's larger than
Yeah,
because
if you increase Q2, you're in a part where like if you increase the quantity, consumer surplus is kind of wow. So this is positive.
that's
Quantity of 2 with respect to Q1
it's positive
It's
because
positive.
you increase
Yes.
Q1, you increase Q2.
is positive. You know the slope of this. It's m over 2b. Right? So m over 2b is m over 2b. Changing consumer surplus with respect to the cost. If the cost goes up, consumer surplus goes down. So this is negative. Right? But the change in cost with respect to Q1 is negative. So this is positive. So all of this is positive. Okay? I'm thinking here intuitive. Okay, then we can do the algebra. But this algebra is not as hard. Right? We're already at like 134. So there's no way we're gonna finish this problem, so
Okay.
if anybody needs a bathroom break, we can take like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And we continue at 140 exact. Okay, everybody needs to be like sitting down here at 140.